Hey everybody! Well, today we're going to take a look at a really cool 3D printed model that I managed to find. Now, for those of you that remember the show that this comes from, it was called Jason of Star Command. It was a Saturday morning live-action kid show. I think it came out back in 1978, and it was kind of in the heyday of all the live-action Saturday morning shows that they had for kids to watch. Absolutely loved all those live-action shows. They were great. So Jason of Star Command was kind of like an offshoot of Space Academy. It came after Space Academy, and on that show, Jason was kind of like a Han Solo type of character. And there was two different robots on there. One was called Peepo. He was carried over from Space Academy, and then we had this little guy. This was Wikee. W.1.K.1 was his official name, but Jason always called him Wikee, which I thought was kind of cool. And he was kind of one of those robots that's kind of the clawfoot robots, you know, that walk with their one foot over the other. That's what these are. So these are all 3D printed parts. Now, I don't know the gentleman's name who made the files for this, but I will put a link in the description if you want to get the file for it. And also, the gentleman who printed all this for me is Jacob. Now, I've talked about him before. He's printed all the batteries not included robot model kits that I put together. If you watched all those videos, he does a great job. If you want anything printed from him, I'll put a link to his contact, and you can have him print some stuff up for you. So he did another great job on this. I think it's a mixture of plastic parts and resin here. And these are all the parts that we're going to see. But first, before I show you everything, let me show you some clips from the show so that you can get familiar with this little robot in case you haven't seen the show. Looking at this clip from the show now, we can see little Wikee. Now, he walks kind of like those clawfoot wind-up robots, as we can see here.
It's cute, Parsifoot, but it looks like a toy.
Looks can be deceiving.
Okay, so that's Jason on the left and Professor Parsifoot on the right. Professor Parsifoot is the one who invented Wikee. And Wikee had a lot of other features as well.
You name it. It can be a laser, a tiny rocket ship,
So we get a good close-up of the back of him here, as you can see. So the paint job is going to be pretty simple for the most part. He's white on his legs. He's white on the top here, and he's got this darker gray color, maybe a neutral gray in the middle. And these little details in the back, looks like a couple of gears. And that thing, I think these are supposed to be little engines or something, because he can fly in the air. He can like hover. So hopefully I can get the paint looking pretty much the same as we got going on here. You'll notice there's a little patch of gray right there, and there's a little space of white in between the, the top and the bottom right there. And this is where Jason gives him his name.
W.1.K.1. It looks like Wikee.
And now you can hear the little sounds that he makes. He sounds like a little chipmunk or something. You never really could understand what he said. So now here's the front view of him. You'll notice this little detail right in here. He has that little red light, kind of washed out because the video's not that crisp. It's an old show. And once again, the gray going on here, the gray here. Now you'll notice there's no space of white right in there, except for these paint scratches. That's actually a flaw in the paint job. Some of the paint actually scratched off right there. But the legs look like they're mostly white with maybe a little black stripe right here. I can't tell if that's a black stripe or if that's a shadow. But yeah, you can see he's a small little guy. This up here is just some detail. It looks like some greebling that they did. Maybe some black and gray highlights that I can put in there as well. Now here's a good close-up of that top detail. You can see all the greebling going on right up here. So it looks like there's a little bit of a couple of black spots right here, and then the same color gray that they used on this part right here. It looks blue-gray here on the video, but it's more gray if you see the show itself in person. Now I need to see if I can try to get some decals for the W.1.K.1. I might know somebody that can print some up for me, and then also, well, I hope I can get those. If not, I'll have to see if I can somehow hand draw them, which won't look as good, but hopefully I can get some decals. This thing here, you'll notice there's these loops right here. There's another one back in this part, and then there's two more loops over here. I think the sole purpose of those was to attach the wires for when he flies around. I'm pretty sure that's what those were in there for, but you'll notice that in the middle of this gray area, those are white, so I'll have to make sure I paint those white. And here you can see how Wikee flies.
Do your thing.
So he's on wires, obviously. It's kind of cool how he can fly like that. And here's where we get a first look at his laser features. Wikee was really cool. I like that he was kind of a neat little character on this show. Here you can see those loops that I was talking about. Now here's another great close-up of Wikee, although I think this one is different than the one we saw earlier, because if you look, you can kind of tell right in this section here that that is wood grain. You can see the wood grain showing in here with the light reflecting on it. So this one was obviously made of wood. This was probably a non-functional one. Maybe the legs didn't work, just the light worked on it. So I don't know how many of these guys they made for the show, but this one is definitely a wood version. Now, in the pilot episode of this show, there's a great commentary by Lou Scheimer, who was one of the producers of the show, and then Craig Lidler, who played Jason, and it's fun to listen to their recollections of this show, but Lou talks about how Wikee never worked. He said as soon as the cameras went on, he stopped working, and it was really frustrating. So I thought that was kind of funny. Very similar story about Dr. Theopolis from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. They said that he wouldn't work either. So little Wikee here was a little mischievous. I gotta say that the special effects that were done on this show were really well done, considering this was 1978. I mean, the budget for this show was for a Saturday morning kid show. I mean, you can see all the model work. This is not digitally done or anything like that. And I think it was pretty respectable, considering that this was a kid show. A couple of the guys, or maybe more than a couple, from the Star Wars special effects team came to work on this show after they were done with Star Wars. So you can definitely tell that they had a hand in this because of the quality. Okay, now let's take a look at these parts. So the first thing I want to mention is the person who made this file. The only beef I have with it is that these walls are really thin. See how thin those are? Super thin. I don't know why he didn't make these walls here as thick as the side ones. It's the same way for both the top and the bottom half of Wikee's body. So yeah, I mean, it's super thin, but you know, hopefully it doesn't crack or anything. It's so thin that you can actually see light coming through right there. I don't know if you can tell. So I'm going to have to probably put a little cap or like some kind of putty or something in there to hide that. So now this is going to go on here like this. Looks just like him, I gotta say. The files, the model itself is great. It's just that this could have been thicker. These are his feet, and like I said, he's like a clawfoot robot that walks like that, like we saw in the clips. These are his ankles. I guess you can call them ankles. And they go on here like that. And then these are his legs. These are printed in resin. Look how good these look. Jacob did a really good job printing these. Those are going to go on here like that. Just glue those on. And then, let's see, some of these parts, I don't know exactly where they go. For instance, this wedge piece, I'm not sure where this goes. I'm guessing it goes on the bottom here somewhere. It's the only place I could kind of think that it would fit. I don't know if it goes this way or this way. I got to go back and look at those clips from the show, figure out where that goes. Now, there's a section here, so that's where all the internals go. So this is fully able to, if you want to motorize this, you can put a motor in there. I'm not going to motorize them. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. And, you know, I might put a light in here. I might put a red light in there. But the circuit I have for that has a a 9-volt battery. I'm not sure there's going to be enough room in here to put all that. But we have this rod that's going to slide up and down on this. I'm going to have to widen that out a little bit so that'll fit better. And then these cool things are going to fit into here like that. And then this other rod, let's see, where is it? Oh, it's right here. See, this one's got a key to it, and it's going to fit in here like that. And then that's what's going to spin this. Like, you know, you can see how that goes. You know, that's what makes Wikee's legs go up and down, is the unevenness of these things turning. You get two of those, of course. Let's see what else. We have these pieces. These are the little jets that go on the back of Wikee's body. These things, for when he's flying, I guess they were supposed to represent jets. Those are going to go on there. Those will be black. And then this dome goes on the back as well. And this is also black. It's going to go right there. I never noticed the details on Wikee's body before. This will be gray, this will be white, and all of his leg sections will be white. This piece here, I'm not even sure what these are. I'm not sure where they go. They're flat on one side, so I have no idea where these go. There's no instructions to this kit, so I'm going to have to kind of figure out what those are. These are the tiny little clips, very nice little clips here that go on the side of Wikee's body. I was talking about how those were on here strictly for making Wikee fly by putting wires on there. Those will be white. These pieces here, so what you have on this thing here is the rod is going to go, the main rod is going to go on here. Then you got this piece that's going to go on here. Then you got the keyed rod that goes here. And then these little things here are what's going to cap all of that off right like that. And that's how all that mechanism works on the inside. So it's really cool. I mean, he's made to work. Like I said, I just don't know what kind of motors to use on him. Maybe some of you are way more inclined to be able to do that kind of stuff. So he'll probably just be a static model that I'm going to make. This is the little eye lens that goes on here for his little light. And let's see, I think that's all of the parts. So yeah, very cool. I mean, the parts are great. So I'm kind of looking forward to this. So I already did some general cleanup on this. And then I'm just going to put some primer on all of this, paint all the white parts white. I think the only gray part is this part. And then we'll go from there. All right, so I finally got everything painted. I was kind of working against the clock because I was running out of daylight and good weather. So anyway, got everything done. Here's the gray part of this. Went ahead and glued that wedge piece that's underneath there. That's the way it's supposed to go. Here's the back, so that piece goes on the back right there. I'm guessing that's where that goes. I was looking at Wikee and he does have this oval shaped thing right there. I did have to make one alteration on here. I noticed that the front of him has this raised area and this didn't have it. It was just flat. And so the piece that looked like this that was on there, I just cut that off and cut this piece out of styrene. And then I made a new one of these using styrene as well. And that way it kind of makes it look more accurate so that when this comes on here, see how they match up? Matches up with this, oops, matches up with this part right here. So that's how that's supposed to go. Looks very cool. And then I went ahead and glued on the little hooks here, and I got to paint those white. And then all the feet and the legs, everything's all painted now. These are not accurate. I was looking at Wikee. He's got some details that stick out on here, and they probably had more than one Wikee, so I'm not sure they were all the same anyway. So this one is definitely not accurate. There's a lot less detail on the legs. But, you know, I mean, it's okay. I'm still not sure if he's even going to stand. Since I'm not going to motorize him, I don't know if he's even going to stand up properly once I get everything put together on here. You know, I'm not sure that the moving mechanism is going to keep him stable. So I may end up just gluing everything together anyway. And so let me see here. So this piece right here, I had to sand out this rut. And I think I'm going to have to take a Dremel. I have a tool that can widen that out a little better, because that wasn't sitting in there all the way. It's better than it was. Before it was sitting up, you know, way up to here. It was like way out there. So it's a little better, but even still, when you put that in here, like this, there's still a little play. You see how that kind of wiggles like that? So I'm gonna have to gouge out a little bit more of that, and maybe right in here as well. And then also on the top of this, I may have to gouge out that so that this will fit properly. And then this piece will fit on here the right way so that there's no, you know, play right in here. See how that's kind of moving a little bit? So yeah, it's not really measured out proper on the file. Well, it's pretty close right there. I already did some gouging on this. Let me see, this one might be okay too. It's got a little bit of play in there. Sorry, I'm out of focus here. So you can see how there's kind of a little bit of wiggling. So I'll have to work with that. But all right, well, I think everything else is good. I got these parts painted black now. And I should be able to start putting them together, I think. So, all right, well, hopefully I can get everything to fit. Okay, so if you decide to build this, just be forewarned, you're going to have to remove a lot of material out of this section right here. I was mentioning that earlier. It's the only way that this thing is going to fit in here right. And then when you put this piece in, now you don't, you know, remember how it was wobbling back and forth? Now it's good and solid. See, it doesn't jiggle now. And so you'll have to remove a lot of material out of there, a lot of material out of this section here as well to get that to fit. And then you're also going to have to remove some out of this area right in here in order for this piece to fit like that, so that it'll turn smoothly. And then I also removed a little bit of material out of these so that it's going to fit. So these, just the whole little indentation of where those rods fit, it's just not measured right. So you're going to have to do a lot of removal there. This is another thing I had to do. Let's see, is this the one I wanted to look at? Yeah, so I put a little mark on this one because, and I marked this one. So you're going to have to remove a lot of material out of here too. So I took a Dremel into that. No, actually I took a file. It was like, I have these really tiny files right here. This one's a kind of like a rat tail file. I just kind of got in there and really sanded, or filed all that out. And then I had this flat file, really small one. And then you can see the flat key part right there. Once again, I had to get in here and really kind of file that out, because that's the only way that this thing's going to fit in here properly, because it's too tight otherwise. So now you can see it fits right up to the edge like it's supposed to. So that's how that's going to turn. So yeah, it's a lot of removal of material in order to get this stuff to work right. Boy, that fits in there pretty tight once you get it in there. So, but I'll glue it anyway. So let me go and see if I can get all this put together in here, and I'll show you how the leg movement goes. But like I said, I'm not putting a motor in here, but we can at least see how that's supposed to work. Alright, well, I have decided to change my mind on this whole thing. So I am not going to use any of this stuff in here, because since this is going to just be a static display model, and I figured that I want the legs to look right. So there's times when I notice that Wikee's legs are both flat at the same time. Well, the way the mechanism worked in here, the legs wouldn't look like that. If I had him static, one leg would be leaning this way, like he was taking a step forward. And I didn't want him to be just standing on one foot and having one foot forward all the time. It didn't look right. I wanted both feet to be flat like that. And so because that post was running through down here into these slots, you could only have the legs right in the center. And so the mechanism in here was definitely a different mechanism than they used on the original prop. Because if you watch the way Wikee moves, his legs kind of move almost in an oval shape, like the legs move forward and backward. And there's times where both feet are flat on the ground like this. This mechanism doesn't ever allow that. One foot is always kind of angled up and taking a step forward. And so there's always just one foot down at a time. So that's why I had to take this out. Because the other thing is I had to move these on each end. See how there's this one on this side and this one on this side? That allows these little forks to kind of go in between each other properly. So yeah, and plus the mechanism itself really isn't that great in this. If you did motorize this, you'd have a heck of a time making that work right. So yeah, this will be better. It's just a static thing. And also, he was sitting up too high, I think. This part of the body should be closer to his feet. So this allowed me to make it look more like it's supposed to. Now you'll notice I also glued some magnets here, and that's because I needed to have a way to put the top on. So there's magnets on here. And then these will just click on like this. See, and then that holds everything together. See, look at this, we're looking more like Wikee now. So I went ahead and painted the little clips white, and I did some touch-ups on here. I think I found someone who can make me some decals, the Wikee W.1.K.1 decal, thank goodness, because I really didn't want to have to do that by hand, because it wasn't going to look that good anyway. So thank goodness that'll look pretty decent. All right, so this, like I said, this kit's a little rough, just the way it is. And I do wish, once again, I do wish these walls were thicker on here. They're so thin that I couldn't really sand too much of this to help try to alleviate some of those lines. So the only thing I could do is just keep putting layers and layers of paint. So I did manage to smooth this down a little bit more. Okay, I think that was it. Oh, and I got this thing painted as well. Alright, so now I just got to try to figure out how to get this light in here. This is a 9-volt battery right here. I think it'll sit right here just fine. Like that. I'm not going to need some kind of a holder. And then this light, I'll just have to cram this wire in here. And then the light will come out the front here. And I painted it red. But I also have the lens right here, and I also painted that red as well. And then the switch, I guess I'll just have to leave it inside. I guess I'll just have to take the top off, but here you can see how that looks. So it's a nice little circuit. I found this on eBay or Amazon, or maybe it was Etsy. Somebody was selling, I think it was Amazon, they were selling a pack of 5 of these, so kind of handy for a project like this. All right, well, back to work. All right, well, here he is, all finished now. Ah, finally, I got a little Wikee. He looks great. Absolutely love this. This turned out looking really good. Very, very happy with the results. This is a pretty accurate Wikee, too. About the only thing that isn't exactly correct is the details here on the side of the leg. At least in some of the scenes, it looks like there was some things that kind of stuck out here a little bit more. But there is detail in this file that shows the leg detail, which I think is really cool. I did thankfully manage to get some decals. I have to give a huge thank you to a gentleman named James who really came to my rescue when it came to these decals, because I really didn't know what I was going to do about this. The font on here, if you look at Wikee's font, it's very unusual. And I couldn't find a W like that, but the K in particular is rather odd. And we were talking about this, and what we think they did on the show is they took a lowercase L and a uppercase L, flipped the uppercase L to make this K. That's what we think that they did. If you look at it, it does look like it's a combination of two different letters. But these decals turned out really good, and I got them both on this side, and he also got the size of them perfectly correct, and here on the back as well. So I put a gloss coat on the upper half here, and then once that dried, I put the decal on, and then once that dried, I put some Walther's Solvaset on there that really makes the decal stick down on the surface, especially this one because it's made of 3D printed plastic, so it's got those lines in there. And then once the Walther's is dry, I just gave it a spray of dull coat, and it looks like it's painted on there. You can see it really turns out looking really good. Here's the details on the top. These are accurate. I was looking at the Wikee on the show, and these are accurate details. I've seen another one of these Wikees floating around out there, but the details are completely different. And that one looks a little chunkier. There's something chunkier looking about it. This one, this one here looks very accurate to the way it was. I did finally get the gray on the feet. Very, very cool. So I absolutely love the way he turned out. Now, when I was talking to the gentleman who was originally going to make the decals for me, he was talking about the lines in the 3D print because it was kind of rough. And I told him that these walls are super thin on this particular file. Unfortunately, Wikee's got really thin walls. I don't know why the person who made the file did it that way. Wish they would have made those thicker. But in the process of doing that, I talked to Jacob, who printed this up for me, and I asked him, hey, can you make this out of resin? Because some of these parts on this one were made of resin. And sure enough, there he is. I got another Wikee, and this one is made of resin. Now, you'll be able to see the difference on this quite a bit. For instance, let me see if I can get the light right. See the little lines here on the print, especially on this side. It's a little rough looking. So resin is definitely the way to go when it comes to these 3D prints. You can see how much smoother this one looks. It looks so much smoother. Everything turned out really, really nice. The details are all the same. It's just that everything is much more smooth, especially the top here. This one here has kind of a rough texture to it. I don't know if I can get the light on it just right, but you can kind of see the texturing on there is a little rough, while this one here is all smooth. So yeah, the resin prints look really good. And then here's the back of this one. It's all the same. The only thing that was a little bit off about this one is you can kind of see a little bit of this indentation. I can't tell you how many times I've heated this up and tried to push that out. There's a little bit of warpage right there. So, and I've tried heating this up and pushing it out, and it's fine for like a day, and then it starts to go back to the way it was. This one here seems to have gotten fixed now because it was kind of pushing in the same way. But this back part, this one here has been giving me a lot of difficulty. So I may have to try to see if I can heat that up again. But here's the back side of this one. There's the bottom of the feet, and then I put the gray on there. This one, because I built this one the second time around, was a little bit easier because I didn't have some of the, well, I mean, this one here was almost kind of an experiment. The other thing I decided to do is, as I mentioned, I did add this section right here because the original file doesn't have this part. It's just all flat, and it should stick up. But I should have made this piece go all the way down to the bottom. I don't really know why I didn't think about that. So on this one, I did correct that. See how it goes all the way down there? And that was easy enough. Of styrene plastic, measured out the width of that top part right up here, and then just brought it down, measured out this length, and then just cut it. And then the piece that looks like this that was on there, I just popped that off and then just made some new ones out of the same piece of styrene. Just made two little pieces, one smaller than the other. There's the bottom. This is where those little white things go. I couldn't figure out what those were. I think on the original Wikee, it looks like there's something white in there, but it looks like it's part of the mechanism that makes him walk. So as I said, these are static ones. I didn't make them walk because I'm really not a fan of the mechanism that they used on the inside. So let me show you. They're both pretty much identical on the inside, but let me show you how I got the batteries set up. Okay, so I want to show you how I did the batteries in there. They're both, as I said, almost exactly the same. But this one here, I showed you a little bit earlier. I have it just sitting on the side like that. And then just hot glued everything in there. I put a zip tie on here. Just push this button to turn on the red light. And then put this back on. And the magnets kind of hold everything on. And you just kind of have to kind of get those wires out of the way. So that one's on. And then this one here. Now this one's battery, I put a little stand on it, or a little battery holder. I used these before in other models. You've seen me have that little white thing in there. And you find those at Home Depot. They're actually made for cables for a TV. And they're the little piece that kind of connects the two pieces of plastic that look similar to that. It's to hide the cables on your TV if you're hanging it on the wall. But they work perfect for holding a 9-volt battery. And you'll notice this one's flat. That's because I didn't glue in that piece in the middle, since I was experimenting with that one to see if I could make the leg movement work on there, and it didn't. So I turned the light on that one. And I love how these just click together. Having those magnets on there makes it so much easier for those to go on. All right, so let me show you the front so you can see the light. So here they are now with their lights on. Apologies for that last segment having a little bit of audio difficulty. I've been experimenting with different microphones and I'm still trying to get the right one. But anyway, here they are, all finished now with their lights. Oh man, I love this. This is so cool. I've been wanting a Wikee ever since I was a kid and first saw Jason of Star Command on TV. It was such a cool show. It was a great show. It was kind of an action-adventure series, and it was an offshoot of Space Academy. A lot of live-action Saturday morning kid shows were so cool, made by Sid and Marty Krofft, and then Lou Scheimer and Norm Prescott. They're the ones who did Space Academy and Jason of Star Command here, and a couple of other shows. It's just a lot of fun kids' entertainment on Saturday mornings. I absolutely loved it. And so Jason of Star Command, Wikee here, he ended up kind of being the hero in a lot of episodes because he ends up saving Jason or some of the other members of Star Command, and it was just a really neat show. James Doohan, who was on season 1, he didn't return for season 2 because they started filming Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and so he did not return for season 2. So they brought a new actor in. I can't remember his name. It was something Russell, I believe, and he was a more serious commander. And he was blue. He had a blue face, which the actor wasn't too happy about that, and I don't blame him having to have that blue makeup on his face all the time. But and then Wikee was changed in season 2 as well. They changed the way he looked. I don't know why they did. I mean, he's still kind of cool looking, but I kind of like the original Wikee better. But the new one was a little more boxy look, and he was more square, and he was more narrow, and he had kind of like a wider opening over here where you can see the mechanics of his legs. He still had the clawfoot legs when he walked, and he still walked the same way, but he looked a little bit different. He had like some red on him. He was like red and white. It was just, I'm not sure why they changed the way he looked. It was kind of weird. Also, the episodes went to a half hour in season 2. In season 1, they were only maybe 15 minutes long. I think one of them's even shorter than 10 minutes. It was really weird. I think it was part of another show. It was like a show within a show. I can't remember how that whole thing started. It was so long ago. But yeah, the show was really cool. But yep, little Wikee here. So if you want to get one of these, and if you have a 3D printer, I'll put a link in the description to the website that has the files. I think the guy charges $6.95 for it. And I think you also have to register on the website to download the file. But if you don't want to go through all of that, just have Jacob print these up for you. He can print them in plastic like this one, or I would recommend you get it printed in resin. It just looks a whole lot better. Just keep in mind that the sides on the front and the back are very thin. You got to be very careful. You may have to heat up this part and the back part here like I did to try to make it come out a little bit more. you may be way more mechanically inclined and can make him walk. I didn't approach that. I didn't particularly like the way the interior mechanisms are, and because there's these crossbars going across with his legs, it kind of makes it not a lot of room for a battery and a motor, and I wouldn't know how to set that up anyway. Here, I just want to show you real quick what those lights look like without the lights on. See, look at that. They're really neat. So yeah, I mean, this is a nice little model of him. It's a static model. I think he looks just fine. I'm happy with this. And the lights turned out good. A little bit of Tamiya red to make that look more red, and also painted the LED. But I think it looks really cool. And Wikee was kind of a cute little robot on the show, even though the producer said he didn't work very well. Once the camera started rolling, that's pretty funny. So if you want to get this, I'll put a link in the description for the files, and I'll also put a link in the description for Jacob, so that you can get him to print this for you. A huge thank you to the person who made the files. I don't know who he is, but I think it's the only files I know of Wikee, especially one that's pretty accurate like this one. And a huge thank you also to Jacob for printing these up for me. He's come to my rescue with that for a couple of different robots that you've seen me build on here. And also a huge thank you to James for coming up with those decals, because I really didn't know what I was going to do about the lettering. I bought some vinyl letters from Hobby Lobby that they're about that small, and they wouldn't have had the same font, so it wouldn't have looked right. So I'm very grateful that he was able to do the decals for that. It looks really good. There's one episode where Wikee's flying out in space and you can see these little jets lit up. It's really cool. I just love Wikee. He's so cute. All right, well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. I very much appreciate it. And until the next video, I will see you then. So thank you again for watching, and have a good one.